a lot. They really do. Either that or locking layers. I prefer to lock pixels myself over using masks. Masks are just 2 or 3 extra steps to get to that point. But yeah, if I can't do a layer lock or a pixel lock, as it's called in some programs, or a what's the other word? An alpha channel lock. Then I go layer masks. And if you find them working for you, great. If they don't work for you, that's okay. Try another technique. You guys are making me feel so much better. I love answering your questions. I mean that. I hope you know that. Okay, I'll give you a 101 on layer masks here in a second, because I use them all over the place here. So there are pixel layer, and in different programs they work different ways. Actually, no, they work about the same, but they have different names and they have different locations where you turn them on. I'm using Clip Studio Paint Pro, okay? And I said it already, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you for allowing me to teach you guys. I personally find, for some reason, that makes me feel a little better, which I have no idea why. You'd think that would exhaust me even more, but for some reason I find myself renewed in these kinds of moments, so thank you. So what I'm doing here is I'm very quickly painting this guy's face. I have different layers separated, so instead of just hitting my paint bucket tool, I'm doing it old school, and I'm painting it in by hand. If you can lock your layers properly and get them all so all the lines line up, then don't waste your time. Get the paint bucket and dab that single color in there and save yourself 5 minutes of coloring. It's the best move. So let's see. Love Clip Studio. That's what I have. Okay, so we're gonna teach you in lines of Clip Studio. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly doctor in this skin tone here, and we're gonna do several things to this skin. One, we're gonna add some shadow effects. We're gonna add some airbrushing. We're gonna add some things to it very, very quickly, and they're all gonna happen very, very fast. They would take a lot longer to do if you used an airbrush and then had to go clean up all your airbrush marks, which is probably what you have been doing. And if you have been, I am so sorry for you, because that takes forever, and I'll demonstrate here. Let's make a new layer, and I want to give him some blush. So I'm going to grab my airbrush, I'm going to grab hot red, and I'm going to go ahead and blush his cheeks up here, okay? Now, right here, I've already got my first issue. I will have to go back and erase off of the white to get rid of that. That stinks. And you will oftentimes miss it. And if you have transparent backgrounds, like most of my clients want transparent backgrounds, they will come back and say, I found this weird little mark somewhere in the middle of my artwork, and you'll realize it's because of this. So here's the better way to do it. What we do instead is we take that skin layer that we want to affect. We only want to paint within that skin layer. There's 2 ways to do it. If you want to paint on the layer, you come over here to your layers panel, and unfortunately it's hiding under my face. Let me move my face out of the way here. Hang on a second. That way you can see. Hold, please. Okay, going for a ride. Here we go. Nope, wrong way, wrong one. Hang on. I want to move this guy. Here we go. Whee! Okay. So what I want you to look at is this button right here. It says Lock Transparent Pixels. What that means is anything that hasn't been painted stays locked. And that means that you will only paint on pixels that you have put down. That means now, if I lock that layer, now I can come in here with my airbrush, and if I do that same thing, look at how it only colors the skin. And once again, my face is in the way. Okay, so let me move out of the way here so you can see that. There you go. We'll cover over our guest for the moment. So you can see that that has colored everything and left the outsides completely clean. You don't have to worry about bleeding and such like that. Nice feature. But one thing I don't like to do is mess up my layers below. What if I want to affect that skin tone layer differently? Well, then here's what we do instead. We use a layer mask. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to undo what I just did. and we're going to right click. We're going to right click on the box of the layer. And you're going to see it's going to bring up a couple menu options. One here is called Selection from Layer, Create Selection. Now you can see you got the crawling ants specifically around what you colored in that layer, okay? Now, hiding under my face yet again, unfortunately, as I just messed that up. Let me go and hide my face away again. What we're going to do instead is we're going to go click on this weird icon right here. It says Create Layer Mask. We're going to click on that, and you're going to see it's going to make a mask of all black and then white. Basically, the way that I want you to think about it is a piece of paper that's a black piece of paper. All right? And what you've done is you've cut a hole through that black piece of paper. You can see through it. That's the white. And it's a template, basically. So that mask, everything that's in white in that mask, you can paint in and you can affect. So if I do that same thing, if I click on the layer and not on the mask, if I click on the layer and I paint the same way, it will do that same effect. And once again, I'm in the way. But here's where it actually is even more helpful, because once again, I'm still painting on the layer. But what if I was to make another mask? What if I was to make another mask on a different layer, but use the mask that I just created from this layer? Do you see how this works? There's two ways we can go about doing this. One, I'm going to undo and get rid of that. I'm going to go back and get rid of that, that mask on here. There we go. It's gone. So we've right-clicked on the box. We've done Selection from Layer, Create Selection, right? What we're going to do before we do anything else is we're going to make a new layer. On that new layer, then I'm going to press that same Create Layer Mask button that's hiding under my video right now. You're going to see it's going to take that mask and put it on that blank layer. Has your mind gone? Apparently my lights think so. And here is where now you can take your color that you want, making sure that you've selected the actual layer, not the mask layer. You can paint and affect the mask layer. You don't want to do that here. You want to leave that alone. You want to click on the actual layer. And now take a look. And we can do that on its own layer. That means if I turn off the background layer, if I turn off that skin tone, that stays itself. It's a wonderful thing. So let me show you how I use it now. So we're going to go back here. We have created our mask layer on a separate layer now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give him some blush, and we're going to do all the same things here now, and we're going to do it as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just a light blushing on the sides of the face, because I like that. It gives a nice little effect. I look at where blush is on his face. He's got a little bit on his cheeks, in the crevices of his cheeks, so we're going to go ahead and go in there. A lot on the nose, actually, so I'm going to cover that nose in red as well. A little bit on those lids, so I'm going to put them in there. He's got some on the central point of his chin there, and even on his neck down here. And then what I will do is simply take that layer, change it to a multiply, and drop the layer until it looks more natural. And we will find a balance somewhere in the middle there, kind of like that. What if I want to use this layer for other things too, though? For instance, doing doing shadows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on the layer, not on the box, but on the layer, and I'm going to say Duplicate Layer. Now, what it's done is it's given me the exact same thing with that color there. So we've doubled up on this layer. You can see that as we do this. I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to come right up here, and there's this little thing here that looks like this starburst or light burst or sunburst thing. If you click on that, it deletes everything in that layer, but it leaves the mask. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and grab our shadow layer. I'm going to use a purple blue with a little bit of black in it, not much. And I'm going to use a hard brush on this. Once again, the nice thing is you're not affecting anything outside the layer. So I can draw very, very quickly wherever I want, and I'm not going to go over that line. I'm going to make sure my stabilization is turned all the way up, and I'm going to go ahead and start dropping in some shadows. I think my little girl Sammy needs to go outside, so I need to go let her out real quick and probably let out Zoe too. But there you go. That is just how that is the simplest method to do this. And then I'll show you in a second here how I use the pixel locking layer, because I use that in a very special way. And if you've seen my techniques on painting eyes, then using the pixel layer technique is pretty awesome. All right, let's talk a little bit about locked layers. So we're going to make a new layer. I'm going to teach you my eyeball technique. We're going to grab a blue-gray, or maybe it'd be better to say a gray-blue. We'll go ahead and paint in the teeth and the eyes with this gray. Oh, fun. Nice song. Wish you could hear it. It's pretty good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get these all painted in here. This is the one time where instead of making a separate masked layer to affect this, I just want to do it all on this layer. So, and you'll find one way works better for you, another way will work otherwise. So we've painted in the eyes and the mouth, okay? And we have this gray effect here. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer by locking the pixel layer. Okay, not making a mask, we're making a lock on the pixel layer. And I've already shown you what that button is. I know it's hiding underneath my face. I'm sorry about that. Let's go grab white. We're going to grab our airbrush now. I want a pretty good sized airbrush. Because we've locked that layer, if we paint anywhere else, we're not going to see it. It's only when we paint over the pixels that we painted in that layer. So I'm going to make it just big enough so I can start working from the bottom up. And you can see those teeth starting to whiten as we bring that airbrush up. Hi, Zozo. Now, I'm going to leave some of that gray in there because I want it to represent a shadow, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing with the eyes. I'm going to make my airbrush just a little bit smaller, starting at the bottom. Usually you would see the white painting on the face right now, but you don't because we've locked the pixels in that layer. And I'm only just going to put a little bit of white in the eye. Same on this side. There we go. There you go. That's the benefit of locking your layer, of locking your pixel layer. And it's incredibly helpful. It does a great job. Oh, look at you all nice and settled on the bed. Good for you, Zoe. Okay. And you'll find different ways where you prefer to use that. I'm not going to do anything else with that layer. So that is the only purpose that layer serves for me. I'm not going to try and do anything else in it that it would be better off on its own layer or anything like that. Like having shadows or having blush on there will do. That's a different thing altogether. So, but for instance here, the pupils, I've made them this brown, but his eyes are much darker. So I'll use a layer pixel lock, same idea again. And I'll go for a darker brown. Grab my airbrush, I'll zoom into my eyes here a little bit. If I was to paint on this without locking the pixels in that layer, I would paint all over the place. But here, all I want to do is just kind of affect the outside of this. And just get a little bit of darker brown on the outsides of this. Then just make it stand out a little bit, you know?